Welcome to Belfast Wheel. My name is Jonathan Watson, and today's guest is Rajan Shankara. At 19, Rajan became a Hindu monk, and he spent 12 years at a monastery. He has helped edit and publish some of Hinduism's oldest scriptures on health, balance, and culture. Rajan has also mentored over 1,000 individuals and is an author of 4 books. He currently helps NASA. He works for NASA with project coordination in advanced air mobility. Rajan has also his own podcast, Man in the Making, and his latest book, Everything Is Your Fault: Changing Your Life with Responsibility, Leadership, and Meditation, is out on June 25th. So, Rajan, thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Obviously, just to get us started, your journey kind of starts off like in the book, getting pulled over by the police with a trunk or boot full of drugs and weapons.
That's true. One of my not friends, but an acquaintance I met as I was writing the book. She read a manuscript where that part was in the middle of the book, and she said, "Put that on the first page."
What happened that night? If you could just for anyone who's maybe not familiar, just what happened.
Sure. Well, when you sell drugs, you have to go pick them up from somewhere, and usually you take them back to where you live so that they can be processed and ready for mass shipment. So I was on my way home from a normal, what we called a run, just a normal pickup from the city of Chicago into Indiana. So I was going back home into Indiana, and it was around midnight. And the Indiana streets were empty. It was just like a clear night. There was nothing special about it. And I turned into the neighborhood where I lived with my mother. And so I could pretty much see my house on the street, and I was about to make a left turn. And suddenly, sort of out of nowhere, because no one was around and I was watching, I was pulled over by a canine unit. So really bad timing on that. And basically, I rolled down my window, and the officer said, just the first thing he said was, "Can you get out of the car?" That was the first thing he said. And then he walked back to the trunk. He said, "Get out of the car, come towards the trunk." And so at that moment, I was kind of like surrendering to the obvious. I was like, okay, middle of nowhere, Indiana, in the night. No one's around. My car looks suspicious. I look suspicious. This isn't going to end well. So I'm not going to fight it. I just gave up. And I didn't feel anything but calmness, really. And so we're sitting there at the trunk, and the officer is constantly looking back at his canine unit and his dog that is going absolutely berserk in the back seat. And so if I were a dog, I would probably be berserk too. Like, the aroma is coming from my trunk. So he shines his light back at the dog, shines it at me, and says, "Okay, so do you mind if I search your car? Do you mind if I search you?" And I said, no, I don't mind. And I said, "No, I don't mind. The dog can search the car. You can search the car. You can search me. It's fine." And so he kind of just sits there for a second and looks at me, maybe like, a good 8 seconds, just looking at me. And that's a long time to look at someone and not say anything, especially in that situation. And he puts his flashlight away and he says, "I trust you." And he walks to his car and drives away. And I'm just standing there, dumbfounded, but I guess I was smart enough to realize that it was a second chance at life.
Yeah.
I wasn't so naive to think that, oh, great, I got away, now I can continue on doing what I was doing. I genuinely knew that I had a second chance at life. And so from that moment on, I pretty much dedicated myself to actually becoming a good person, and that contributed to society. And I did.
From obviously from that moment to getting away from that industry, how long did that take? Was it pretty much that night you just thought, like, I'm done with this, or did you have to kind of like make a plan to get out of that?
That's a good question. No one's asked me that question before. It wasn't instantaneous, so I had to get rid of everything I came home with. What I did was I gave it away to a friend who was also in the same business as me, so he was happy about that. Funnily enough, I reconnected with him later in life, and he had his own second chance, and his car was basically shot up. And so he realized he almost died, and he stepped on the straight and narrow path. So I gave everything to him the next day. I told some people that were important in the supply chain that I was done. My business partner was already in prison, or he was in and then got out. So he was done. I mean, so it was fairly quick, maybe 5 days, and I was free of that responsibility.
What age were you at that time? Because I know when you decided to become monk, you were 19. But what age were you at that time when the police officer stopped you?
I think I was 18.
18. Okay.
Yeah, I had just graduated high school.
Yeah. And you've been from the book. Remember, you were selling drugs for a while. It started off kind of like just personal use, and then it kind of progressed into like a business. Is that right?
Yeah, for personal use, it started when I was a little kid, and then I started up selling when I was 16.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was only in it for a few years, but it happened. It was a very interesting time in where I grew up. Basically, there was a drought, you could say, in our town. And me and my friend happened to basically capitalize in the supply chain and being the only ones in stock. So we very quickly became the number one source. And then that just expanded from there and just got more and more illegal from there.
Yeah. And you then with a friend, you then went on to start a successful asphalt, or what we would call here tarmacking business. Can you tell us a bit more about that, and why you both left the business when it was doing very well? What made you decide to become a monk? Kind of 3 questions rolled into one there. Sorry.
Yeah, well, those are good questions. They're all relevant, and they all happen around the same time. So it must have just been a few months later where I had stepped on the straight and narrow path. my good friend came to me and said, I've got an idea. Since we were kids, we always talked about how we were going to get rich and how we were going to own a business. And I'm thinking back on it now, it was very strange how we were very young in my garage, skateboarding around, playing basketball, but we were talking about being entrepreneurs throughout the years. And we just thought about it in late hours of the weekends. And so he comes to me as a pretty much an adult now, and he says, "I got it. I've got our business. We're gonna start." And he explains it. We're gonna start tarring asphalt, and we're gonna learn how to put down new asphalt. We're gonna get a small crew. We're gonna get a truck, and it's just gonna happen. And this is what we're gonna do. And he was, my best friend, and I trusted him. He's a smart guy. And I was like, I'm in. This is great. So so his business mentor, basically sold him all of the equipment needed to start this business through a loan. And we were allowed to pay it off over time as we learned about the business. I mean, it was absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
And so we just got rolling, and we had a business mentor, and we went door to door, literally just cold knocking on doors, selling this product on people's driveways. And it worked. For a while, we didn't get a sale because we didn't know how to talk to people. But we started getting sales when we really, really needed the money. So we both moved into our own place. We needed the money. And man, I got my first sale when we were out of gas, stalled in front of the client's driveway, and we were far from home, and and the sun was going down. And I knocked on a door, and man, when you need something, you can sell. You can sell it. And I got turned down 3 times, and he came back on the 4th time, and he's like, okay. And I think from that point on, I almost never missed a sale. It was just so smooth from there. So we got up to the point where we're making about $3,000 a day.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of money. Too much money for young people who are dumb, dum-dums, don't know anything about anything. And so we spent it as fast as we made it. We had a great time. And it wasn't long before that where it was like a depression set in. And him and I were not happy at all. In fact, I think we were miserable. And so the question naturally arises, well, why? Why are we miserable? Not only do we have a lot of money, but we have the potential to make even more money. We were getting contracts from law offices, dental places, restaurants. We were now striping parking lots in the middle of the night. I mean, and we were kids, and this was basically the beginning of a very large company. We had a worker do things for us. We put them on a driveway and collect the money from the client and meet us at the end of the day. And so if you extrapolated this business throughout the years, this was going to be a very big thing. But we were miserable. And so we were sluggish and like lethargic, and started to rain for about a week straight. And so when it rains in that business, you don't work. So that's why when it's not raining, you work. So you can work 7 days a week for a month or 2 months or 3 months. If the weather is good, you work because you don't know when the weather is going to be bad.
Yeah.
So rain had set in this Indiana town called Valparaiso. And Tony, my friend and business partner and roommate, he found this book online called Autobiography of a Yogi by a monk named Paramahansa Yogananda. And now Tony was always kind of looking for the next thing. He's a really smart guy. He's now since gone off the radar a bit and he's lost touch with everyone, and we love him and hope to talk to him again one day. But he's kind of too smart for his own good.
Yeah.
So he's always looking for the next thing. So he's not working. So he's researching on happiness and fulfillment and meaning and purpose. And he finds this book that teaches that through this monk's autobiography. And he finishes it in a few days. And the look on his face when he finished was like he knew all things. And like he had a little back room in our apartment, and he came out of his back room and it looked like he was fully matured. The look on his face, it was so interesting. And I looked up, I was on this little green lounge chair, and I looked at him, and he said, "You've got to read this book." And he said, "Don't talk to me until you finish reading it."
Okay.
This is like a 250-page book. Like, what do you mean, don't talk to me? And he walks out and he goes and smokes a cigarette. So I read the book, and sure enough, it and again, now I'm thinking about this for the first time. I wasn't a very intelligent person at the time, and this is a very difficult read. But somehow I became obsessed with the book. I became totally engrossed in it. I mean, this has never happened to me before. I was not a reader at all. I barely passed school. So I finished the book, and he's like, and Tony is sitting there, and this is just a few days later as well. So he oftentimes left for days at a time and went back to his mom's house. So he was gone. So he came back, and I said, "You're right." And he said, "Now you know what we have to do." So basically, we both realized through this book that meditation was going to make us happy, or was going to lead us to happiness.
Yeah.
Meditation or Raja Yoga. And I decided when I finished the book that I was going to leave the world and study meditation until I mastered it. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what anything meant. I just knew that this monk who wrote this book was right. I just knew. And so Tony went off on his own way. He quit the business. I was quitting the business. So my business partner selling drugs, who had got out of prison, he was a felon, so he needed a job.
Yeah.
So I gave him the asphalt company.
Nice.
So I said, here's my equipment. Here's a book of clients. We're gonna go around. I'm gonna introduce you to everyone, and you're gonna do this. And I showed him how to dump out a tank on a parking lot, and we did a few jobs together. And I said, I'm done. I'm gonna go to Hawaii with my sister and live in the jungle, and I'm never gonna come back. And he's like, all right. And he didn't say much. He just wanted to learn the business. So he was also a very smart man. So now he is actually a successful business owner in Colorado.
Nice fun. Yeah.
And so I actually reached out to him 12 years later after the monastery. And he had taken the company pretty far. And he opened up 3 businesses, escape rooms.
Okay.
where they're like interactive rooms where you have to figure out a problem
Yes.
before the room unlocks.
Yes.
So, and now he's one of the top escape room business owners in America.
Whoa. Goes to show you. Yeah, that's, yeah.
So, and he actually helped me when I got out of the monastery. He helped me get an apartment and everything. But so I ended up, yeah. And so my dad, I told him what I was doing, and he thought I was going to go be a bum, basically.
Live on the beach.
Yeah, live on the beach and be a beach bum. That's literally what he said. And he said, all right, before you go do that dumb stuff, have you ever heard Jonathan, of Hurricane Katrina in 2006?
Yes. Yeah.
So he said, so this is around that time it had hit. He said, why don't you come with me and help out, like do something with your life and help these people, and we'll clean up with this nonprofit, and then I'll buy you your one-way ticket to Hawaii, so you can waste your life. And I said, great, let's do it. And so we went there. We went for a week. That was amazing. We helped clean homes and everything. So the government had a policy. If your home in the lower 9th ward, because all those homes were destroyed basically.
Yeah.
If you could have the interior walls gutted, all the sheetrock removed, which was rotted anyway, all the carpet pulled up, if you could have the home gutted on the inside, we will not knock down your home.
Well, okay.
Yeah. So nonprofits were popping up left and right to go down to New Orleans in the lower 9th ward and gut people's homes for them. So we were on a team of like 20, and we could do like 4 homes in a day.
Right. Okay.
We were crushing it. So we did that. That was amazing. Came back, went to the jungle, and that's how I ended up in the jungles of Kauai.
Yeah. And when you read that book, did you always feel up until you read that book, did you always feel that in life in general there was like something missing? There was like, what was that kind of feeling? If you can explain that.
You know, that's a good question. I think up until the point that we left, or up until the point I read the book, I wasn't very self-aware. I was focused on amassing wealth. I don't know why, but from when I was a kid to then, so from 16 to the time I read the book, it was all about money. That was going to be the answer, as much money as I can get. When I read the book and I became self-aware, there was a thing inside. It was like, I don't need to know what's going to happen. And I didn't know I was thinking that. But everything's going to be fine as long as I search for something permanent. So whatever the universe is made up of, I'm going to tap into that, and then I'll know what to do, or I'll know what everything means. Yeah. And I think I was thinking backwards, because normally you go on the search and you study something and it reveals knowledge to you. So I knew that search would reveal knowledge already. I knew that. Yeah. But when I got to the beach, when I got to the jungle, I realized very quickly that I had no idea what to do. I knew I had to do it. Yeah. But I did not know what to do. Yeah. I didn't know the practice or the art of meditation. And, we were on the beach. We were going from place to place. It was beautiful. I was sitting down. I was breathing. I was going through the motions. But something inside was saying, you need a teacher. This is not going to work by itself. There's got to be like a catalyst or something. And I learned from my teacher later that it's kind of easy to renounce and live on the beach and just try to meditate. That's kind of the easy part. That's not actually the practice. And ironically, the practice is not really the meditation itself. It's kind of your constant perspective on things while you work. But just like sitting and doing nothing, that's a fraction of the path of Raja Yoga, a very small part.
And when you decided to go to get a teacher, was it like somebody said you go to this monastery, or was it just a monastery that you knew about? How did you how do you become a monk? Obviously, is it saying do you have to go through like an apprentice phase or what?
Yeah. So Tony, my friend and roommate and business partner, after he read the book, he looked up monasteries online, and he knew that there was a monastery on the island of Kauai. And so that was in the back of my mind. But on the forefront was, I'm just going to go to the jungle. And my sister said, Kauai is where you want to go. And so she lived there for a while on her search for herself. And so she sort of came up and said, I've done this before. You're not going to make it on your own. I'm going to show you how to get coconuts. I'm going to show you who to talk to and when not to be seen and things like that. So that was that part of it. Getting to the island and being there, I didn't think the monastery would be a possibility. I pretty much figured that they would not accept me. I don't know why I thought that, but I wasn't worried about it. So my sister, who had a ticket back home, when she was leaving, a few days before, she said, I think she brought it up. She said, I think you should go to the monastery. I don't think we'll all feel good about you staying here with a tent in the jungle. And I said, all right, I'll go on a tour and I'll see what it's like. And hey, if they let me in, they let me in. So sure enough, so they're on the other side of the island from where we were. And so I ended up getting a ride from a friend that we met on the island. I went for a tour. I talked to a monk afterwards. And I said, I'd like to stay. I'd like to study. I'm pretty dedicated, I think, at this point. What do you say? And he said, absolutely not. He said, go back to where you came from and good luck. And I was like, all right. That's what I expected. I was like, I knew it. So I was set. I was pretty happy. I was like, okay, I picked a spot in the jungle that I was going to make home base. And my sister she said, okay, didn't work. That's fine. And so I talked to my mom for the first time in a while, and I said, hey, we're here and everything. And Rose my sister is going back and I'm all settled. The monastery thing didn't work out. So looks like I'm going to live in the jungle and goodbye. I'll never talk to you again. And my mom said, wait. Go back to the monastery. She said, they're testing you. It's not what you think. They're trying to see how easily you give up.
Okay.
And I said, well, I can't necessarily go all the time because they're on the other side of the island, but I'll try. hung up the phone. And sure enough, not long after that, my sister came back from town, and she said, for the last few days that I'm here, we're going to stay with a friend of mine who I just met. They live on the other side of the island, and they're a block away from the monastery. So I said, okay, I'll go with that synchronicity. And so we packed up our things, and I was able to go to the monastery every morning for their opening hours.
Yeah.
So we were staying with this wonderful person and her 2 kids, and I would kind of pack like a half day's kind of bag and go up there. She'd let me borrow her bike, and I'd bike up the road, and I'd sit in the temple at the monastery and read their books. And my sister was, I think, gone at this point. So a few days had passed. And the woman said that I could stay there until I figured out what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, funny, amazingly enough, I saw her years later. And I saw her in a Home Depot on the island with another monk. And she said, "Hey, how did all that ever work out?" And I said, "Well, it worked out, and here I am, and I couldn't have done it without you." And the monk I was with thanked her, and she said, "I'm really glad it worked out." And she left the island and never saw her again. But along the way in life, we have these people that kind of get us to the next stage, right?
Yeah.
Those are important people, and I think I say this in the book. Everyone is a connector, so we often meet people thinking that they're the person we're supposed to meet, or they're the person I'm going to work with, or they're the person that's going to get me something that I need. But oftentimes it's not that person. They're connecting you to something or someone else.
Yeah, like bridging the gap.
Yeah, and we have to kind of see those signs along the way, because if we get too involved with the person, thinking that they were the catalyst, it may not. We may miss the opening that they're trying to give you.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So, yeah, so I go back, every morning to the monastery, and eventually, one of the monks comes out and says, someone would like to have tea with you. One of the older monks would like to have tea with you. And I said, okay, great. So I go in and I have tea with one of the senior most monks, second in command. And basically, he's got a long white beard, and he's sitting in a chair in the middle of an office surrounded by desks and a great big window facing the beautiful lake behind the monastery. And so we're in paradise. There's no question about it. And I sit down, we were served tea, and we both take a sip. And he starts talking to me about the tea. He says, "This tea is really good for your health. It's very strong tasting, but I think it's going to be good for you." So I'm like halfway through the tea. We're kind of sitting in silence a little bit. Very monk-like. And he strokes his beard and he says, "What do you want?" And I told him that, I've given up everything. I'm on the path. I'm going to master meditation with or without you. But I need some help, and I need a place to stay. I need a place to study. I need teachers. And he's like, "All right. Well, I want you to come back every day, he says. I want you to come back at this time and we'll have tea together every day. And we'll talk more about these things. And he said, when you finish your tea, you go. And I said, amazing, great. This is it. And I go back to the house that day, and I called my mom and I said, hey, so it worked. I'm in. We're gonna have tea every day, and it worked.
Excellent.
And so we had tea for a little bit every day, and a few more days passed, and I asked questions, and we talked about the book that I read because he knew it well. And so I caught up with my mom a few days later, and I said, so yeah, we're having tea and everything, and it's all well and good. She said, so what you have to do now is you have to establish that you're willing to work. And she said, you're kind of selfish, and you're kind of making it all about you and your goals for meditation and what you want. But she said, what they want is for you to work. So you need to find out how to work for them so that their mission becomes your mission. And then they'll let you in. And I go back and we have tea and I ask more questions. And is there anything else? And I said, well, I'd like to work. And so he strokes his beard and he laughs and he spins around in his chair. He's got a swivel chair. And he comes back around and he says, what do you mean? What does that mean? And I said, well, I don't want to leave after I have tea. I want to work here. And I want you to put me to work. And he said, all right. After the tea, after our tea meetings, you're going to go outside and you're going to pick up sticks under that banyan tree right outside my office. So you're going to put all those sticks in one pile on the edge of the tree. This is a very big tree. And then when you make a great big pile and you've picked up all the sticks, you're going to take those sticks and put them on the other side of the tree and make another pile. You're going to do that until we kick you out. And I was like, yes. I'm in. I'm all in. And that's the kind of person I was. And I think I still am. I'm all or nothing. I'm going to learn something. I learn it till the end of it, until I learn everything there is to learn.
It's a bit like, like your journey is a bit like what Joseph Campbell talked about, like the hero's journey. You started out on a journey to acquire wealth. You did that, and then you realized, well, okay, and then kind of inadvertently opened another door that you then traveled, like if almost like autocraxing on your course, if that makes sense.
It's a total Joseph Campbell hero's journey in a nutshell. I mean, it's very obvious. What's funny about what you said is we're all on a hero's journey, right? That's the message in Campbell's work. We're all going into the unknown, into chaos, looking for order, not realizing that the chaos is necessary. It's the catalyst to our education, to our maturity, and that the order that we seek is actually it was actually chaos the whole time that we wanted, the unknown. And then when we mature, right, the hero turns into the sage, and he realizes a healthy balance of both unknown and known is the meaning of our life. Yeah. And as we take one step forward into the unknown, we have 1 foot into the known, and somewhere in the middle is our purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was it was all of that. And so I do that for a few days. I'm doing this very Zen, I didn't, at the time, I was still an idiot. I didn't know that it was a Zen task. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what I was doing, you know. But as I tell people about that now, you know, I realize that, you know, here's this monk. He's been a monk for 50 years. And he sees this young guy and he says, okay, well, I'll give him an absolutely meaningless task. Something that's absolutely outrageously absurd, and see if he finds meaning in it, and see if he'll actually follow instruction without being too much of a pain in the ass. Now, that's the key to a spiritual journey, to not be a pain in the ass to anyone. That means that you're clinging on to ideas. You're clinging on to something. Other people, how they should behave, expectations, on and off. The people that go on and off of social media. I'm done with social media. Yeah. And then they're back a month later. I'm back. I know how to use it now. I know I don't have to listen to people who comment and reply, or the haters. And then I'm done with social media. This kind of hot and cold, this on and off switch. It's a real pain, and it's not the journey. It's not the path. It's ridiculous. So here I am. I do this task, and I do it as good as you can pick up sticks, man. I'm building that pile, moving it. Eventually, a monk gives me a wheelbarrow. He says, "Here, this will help you." It's funny that, like, I don't know. Some kind of I never thought about it, but this monk who I later, you know, worked with for 12 years, giving me this wheelbarrow, some kind of olive branch or some kind of like sign, like it's almost over. I don't know. So I do that. A few days pass or whatever, and a monk comes out. The monk who told me no in the beginning on the tour. He says, the guru wants to take your picture. And I say, okay. And so the next day I come back, I'm picking up the sticks. We had our tea and everything. That same monk comes out and he said, okay, we've accepted you into the 6-month program, and you can stay, you can train, and we'll see how you do from there.
Excellent. Yeah.
But that turned into the 12-year experience.
What, being a monk, what, and I know somebody might be going, this is quite an obvious question, but what is daily life like as a monk? And you were a Hindu monk as well, isn't that right? Just established.
Hindu monks. Yeah. So, it was an Orthodox South Indian Saivite monastery. So I was trained as a Saiva monk of an old lineage called the Nada Sampradaya. That's why we have earrings. The Nadas wear big earrings. And we worship Shiva. So we worship Ganesha, Muruga, and Shiva. That's a whole other world. I'm still a Hindu. I've kept my Hindu name. We legally had to change our names, but before going in, but I still identify as a Hindu. I still follow those practices, and that perspective on life, that philosophy of the Hindu is to me sacred, ancient. Totally worthwhile and flexible. So it's kind of whatever you want to make it. It's a little Buddhist. Buddhism comes from Hinduism. Most things come from Hinduism, if not all things. So I've still kept that. It's ingrained in there. Once you go down that path, it's hard to let go of it. It's hard to not see the wisdom in it.
Yeah.
So it's a militaristic organization. I'm going to reset here real quick.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so this is a militaristic designed organization based on discipline and self-mastery, okay? So there's the monk aspect, there's the soldier aspect, and there's the priest aspect. All three of those are different. If you go into a monastery, usually you just get one of those. Usually they're priests, or they're philosophers, or they're hardcore soldiers. That's the more, the more, is it Southeast Asia? I forgot what some of those lineages are called, but those are more around martial arts and things like that.
Yeah.
So this was a blend of all three, and your day starts early and scheduled. Everything is scheduled. 5:30 roll call in the temple, in rank, in order. Right, everything is very meticulous. Your robes are clean, pressed. They look a certain way. They're in a certain order. We have a morning ceremony called puja, a meditation for an hour after that as a group, and then a break, and then work. Basically at 8 a.m. sharp, everyone goes to their work meeting in their department. There's 5 departments. And so you grab your breakfast, very good food, very healthy food. Each meal was well thought out, and it's breakfast was just light, kind of yogic, nuts, seeds, yogurt, light cereals, things like that.
Yeah.
Buffet style, because you got 20 guys coming in and out. And then you go to one of your 5 departments, and then lunch at 1:08 to 1:30. Everyone eats in together in the courtyard in order, in rank. And we're also, all of our robes are color coded to our rank.
Okay.
So you know who you're talking to, you know what you're dealing with when you look at someone. And so you wake up one day and someone has a new color, or there was a ceremony, someone gets a new color. All of a sudden you see part of the path. You see where you're going, what the goals are, right? Training or rest from 1:30 to 3. So a lot of the young monks would go to the gym and we would train. And then 3 to 6, work again. 6 to 7, training again. 7 to 9, TV time. So you got a chance to relax, not in rank. We would sit down, watch some TV, just chill out together, drink a beer, drink a glass of wine. And then 9 o'clock, lights out, and you do it all over again the next day.
Yeah. It's almost like if you were describing that, even vaguely, someone would think it's almost like a modern day military base in a way. Kind of like that routine. You have a bit of downtime, but you're working, and that's the thing I've seen about yourself. I apologize, I forget the Greek philosopher who came up with this, but he was saying that a human being should be physically capable, but also intellectually capable, and that you kind of fit that bill. You're not, if that makes sense. You're not kind of
Socrates.
Yes, that, because you see a lot of people kind of today, they're all into physical development, but mentally they would struggle to tell you historical events or knowledge. Or you have someone who's maybe all into intellectual, but physically they're frail. You seem to kind of like have that, or the monster you're part of seem to have that kind of balance. That was like seen as important.
Everything is balanced.
Yeah,
everything is balanced. Is my audio messed up?
It kind of goes up and down a wee bit, so it does.
Okay.
But should be okay. Obviously, you were then a monk. You were a monk for for 12 years. What prompted you to leave? What was happening with that? What made you decide to change course?
Well, we should go back to the Campbell, the Joseph Campbell philosophy of unknown and known, chaos and order, group and individual, in order to understand that. So when you're in the monastery, you're identifying with the group. You're identifying with known. You're identifying with order. Okay? So the individual needs the group in order to have some sense of structure, in order to have discipline and routine to find themselves, right? The hero needs the community in order to have some sense of development. Without it, if we're swamped in chaos, we have very little time to learn anything. We're just reacting, right? And before we're trained and before we're mature, before we know ourselves, we're reacting poorly, without wisdom, without grace. So the monastery kept me safe. They kept chaos at bay. But eventually, when you find yourself, when you learn about who you are, when the hero realizes that he or she needs the dragon of chaos to breathe fire on them, to learn the next thing, to go through the next evolutionary cycle. When you learn that you need that heat and that fire, you have to leave the group. You have to leave group identity and go back to being the individual. You have to take the knowledge you gained from the guru and go back to where you came from so that you can save the community. Now, all of that is very Campbellian, mythologically, placed, right? It's all story based, but the story is the best way to describe our journey. And that's what we're all doing. And that's what happened. I got to a point where I was going to graduate. I was going to hit the highest rank. I was doing very well. I had reached graduation early. I was, the guys that were in my class in the beginning, they dropped out up to that point. So I was kind of the last one left. And everyone thought I was going to really just make it till the end. So I go on a 2-year discipline on year 10 to 12 of silence. And that means not from speaking, but from knowing what's going on outside in the world, from spending time with the monks in the evening. That gets cut off for 2 years. It's basically 24/7 work, study, meditation, yoga, research. It's intense. It's exhausting. And it's this 2-year process. It's called Inner Fire. And it's to decide fully if you want to do this for the rest of your life, if this is for you. It's an intense period of self-reflection. And, I go through this process, and basically it worked. It went through the dark night of the soul, or an ego death, so to speak. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but you must be. Yeah. And I come out of it realizing that I don't need to be here in order to do the things I want. I no longer need to be here in order to be fulfilled. And I don't need to be here in order to remain, with an enlightened perspective.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to seek the ends of meditation for enlightenment and self-realization. And it's another thing to become a monk.
Yeah.
They're two different things, and they don't necessarily equal each other. You don't, for self-realization, you don't need a monastery, and monks are not all necessarily at the same level just because they're monks. So you become a monk and you stay a monk in order to sacrifice your life for the good of the religion and its devotees and its followers. And I didn't become a monk for that. I became a monk so I could study the path of meditation. And as my guru told me on one of my last days there, he said, you came here and did exactly what you wanted to do. You didn't come here in the same pretense as a monk normally does. And this makes perfect sense. He said, this is good. Go do your thing. And if you really are going to be a monk for the rest of your life, you need to understand that your level of meditative advancement is not necessarily going to change. What's going to change is you're not going to experience things. You're not going to experience the unknown. So you're already telling yourself that you're done with experience. And that's fine. And you're also there, you're there to help the devotees, to be a conduit, like a middleman between the deity and the disciple, and the church members and the people that come for the morning services. You're their priest, right? You're their philosopher. And I was thinking, whoa, I'm not on that path. I'm not ready to do that for other people. I'm still on the path of experience. I'm still, I realized how valuable family was. I realized how valuable chaos was, and the dragon of chaos, and experiencing that. And so, yeah, it hit me when I got to the last page of another book that changed my life, called Maps of Meaning, The Architecture of Belief.
Yeah, that's Jordan B. Peterson, isn't it?
That is indeed Peterson. And on the last page of the book, he outlines that eventually the hero who identifies with the group for too long destroys themselves. They self-destruct because they have nowhere to go, and they have to break away from the group. And I put the book down and I was like, this is it. Like, and I had been miserable again, reaching a point of misery, surrounded by what should have made me happy or content. Yeah. And yet again, I hit this cycle where I hit a wall, and I'm like, why am I miserable? And it hit me, and I said, I gotta go, gotta do the next thing. So as another monk brother of mine who left and moved, and he lives in Brazil. He's one of Brazil's most well-known meditation teachers, Satyananda. As he told me after I left, he said, I made two good decisions in my life. One of them was going into the monastery. The other decision was leaving. And they both are part of the same process. It's fascinating. And as I started teaching young people in the monastery, hundreds of them online in 2015. And we had this group online, this group of soldiers who were making their bed in the morning. And this is before I knew about Peterson. And they were waking up on time and waking up early and having things to do and having responsibility. And I was helping them through their problems with meaning and purpose and addiction. And I was telling them that when they got to a certain point, they would need to leave the group in order to fully understand the process. Because we'd get a lot of guys who are successful and they're like, well, now what? And I was like, you got to get out of here and experience life now as this new person. And it never dawned on me that I had not left my own group as this new person. And so once it finally happened, it was such a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Did you have an idea at the time of where you were going to go next?
Nope.
No.
And that theme of not knowing has remained with me for as long as I can remember. Just walking forward, not knowing what's going on. And that scares a lot of people.
Yeah, because the danger there with that fear, and this could be applied to even someone's so-called dream job, and maybe it's became like what you're saying earlier, unsatisfactory. Almost like feel a sadness, like a depression. That fear of not knowing can kind of almost trap you in where you are.
Yeah, it gives you a paralysis. Yeah.
If anyone's watching now, any tips or advice you would give for somebody to kind of push through that fear?
Well, I mean, it's the answer that they need is going to come, but what they have to do first is figure out who they are. See, if you know who you are, then everything will work out. That is true.
Yeah.
There is some kind of mysterious, universal connection going on. I don't care what you believe in, what kind of life you've had. It runs through all of us. And once you identify with the trust factor that that's true, starts to happen. Your life, the doors start to present themselves, and you have to go through them. Opportunity is everywhere, right? And you have to eventually say, okay, I'm going to do this to it or to something. I talk to people all the time who are like, what do I do next? And I'm like, why don't you run through the last week or the last few weeks for me? And they say, they'll run through their week. And I'm like, there was like 5 things in there that were screaming at you to do, and you didn't do them. And they look back and they're like, I'm an idiot. And it's like, it's this weird kind of numbness to experience or to opportunity. A young fellow I've been working with for a while now. He's gotten to a great place, and he's kind of like, okay, I'm stuck here. I'm back home. I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. And I said, go, let's go through the last month. What happened? And sure enough, he received an opportunity to go study with a teacher in India for like 6 months, and he's got nothing else to do. And I'm like, you didn't take that opportunity? Yeah. And he's like, well, I didn't really see it. Like, I heard about it, but I didn't really think about it. And so it's not that I need to tell him, okay, you need to go study with this teacher thing. I guess I can only stress to people, once you find out who you are, you no longer are confused about what to do. You just know, because you know the tool that you're working with in this life, which is this body and this mind and this intelligence. And I don't believe that we are this thing, right? I believe we're spirit. And I believe that when we tap into spirit, through however you do that, you will start living life, and you'll be there for it. Everyone who hasn't gotten to that point yet they're unconscious. They're asleep a little bit, right? To use this cliche lingo, but it's a good way to describe it.
Yeah. If I could ask, and it's kind of, because I've wrote questions out here, and my brain's kind of firing new ones in as we go through this. obviously for a lot of people, we're not all able maybe to go to like a monastery or devote ourselves to that. And I'm sure as you're fully aware, and you mentioned social media, we're kind of drowning in an age. Let me kind of say one thing's been negative, because a lot of stuff, the world we live in now is a lot better than it was 50 odd years ago. Things have improved, but at the same time, I think as a trade-off, we're being drowned out by noise. So kind of knowing who we are or learning who we are, it's probably became a lot more difficult. What tip or advice could you give somebody to try and connect with themselves and realize who they are? Because you mentioned in the book, and I agree with that, and you see a lot yourself, is we kind of, as we're born and we grow, there's expectations put upon us. We assume different identities. I mean, growing up, like I would kind of looked at certain people and thought, oh, he's feared, he's respected, I want to be like that person.
Sure.
So you kind of you adopt these like kind of personalities. They're not your own. So the real you kind of gets drowned, and then you have to kind of find them. So in a very long-winded question, how do we find ourselves in the modern world?
Right. So you need a routine. Okay. The short answer is you need a balance of known and unknown, chaos and order. The order is the routine. You need to wake up at a certain time. You need to actually set an alarm. You need to self-reflect, read, write, absolutely read. Like, you need to read something. You need to read meaningful books. You need to write down your thoughts, your pains and horrors and tragedies and joys. Write all that stuff down. And don't keep the paper. It's not a journal. Write stuff down that is emotionally, exhausting, and then burn the paper. Like, clear yourself out through self-reflection. Exercise, of course. Watch the way you speak to yourself and the way you speak to others. Okay, so there's this process there. I have this curriculum actually available under what's called Zen Mind Academy. It's a nonprofit I started. And I believe I've developed one of the most comprehensive Zen curriculums that exist. Zen Mind Academy. And my curriculum has all these steps, right? They're for order. So once you have the order down, once you get into a routine, your true self starts to kind of unfold a little bit. Okay. Clearing out the debris of your subconscious will help you go deeper into who you are. Because, like you said, we go through life where we're like a debris bug. You ever seen those bugs that pick up debris?
Yes.
It gets clung. It gets
like a dung beetle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sticks to us, and it's different personas and archetypes and role models and mentors, the right ones and the wrong ones. And we end up with this image today of who we are. So we have to go back a little bit. We have to kind of go through a life review and say, okay, who am I exactly? Because a lot of times we're influenced by things that are not us. People project on us. Here's what you should do. Here's what you shouldn't do. Here's what you are. Here's what you aren't. And those things get in there in what's called the sub of the subconscious. So we have this rule setting part of our brain. And enough experience goes into the subconscious. Two or more experiences that are similar set a rule in the sub of the sub, in the basement of our subconscious. It has a locked door, and it's where rules are made, right? I spilled coffee on myself on Monday, so it wasn't devastating. I changed my shirt. I was on my way to work. Okay, no big deal. A month later, I spill coffee on myself again, in my car on the way to work. Okay, not that bad, but it happened again. Now, every time I hold coffee or I'm in my car or I'm on my way to work, I get anxiety, right? Now that's a rule. Sub of the subconscious experience, sub of the sub basement. As soon as it happened twice, you now believe that when you hold coffee or anything involving work or your car or the mixture of the three gives you anxiety for some reason. And it's not real. It doesn't necessarily mean just because you're holding something that you're going to drop it. But your brain doesn't know that.
Yeah.
So we have all these rules that we have to go through and break apart. And we have to make new rules, write new scripts. Okay, so once we've done all that, or once we've started to do all that, spontaneously, little indicators of intuition will present themselves. And we will feel better after going through a bit of hell, our own dark night, our own ego death, right? We have to kind of lose ego a little bit, and then it comes back, and then we know how to use it. And maybe we'll get more creative. Maybe we'll become an artist. Maybe we'll actually like writing and we'll write a lot and write a book. Maybe we'll paint, right? There's something in there. Maybe we'll climb a mountain and decide to climb every other mountain there is. And maybe we'll figure out how to deal with our addictions and then help people with their addictions. There's something in there and out there that we're supposed to do. And in this process of self-discovery, finding out who we are, it comes out, it presents itself, and it'll repeat itself if it's right.
Yeah.
And we just have to start that process of clearing out our life and rewriting it so that we know who we are right now. And I think if we can do that, we won't really fear tomorrow. We won't really fear not knowing what we're supposed to do, because we'll take pleasure, we'll take joy in everything. So one of the greatest things I found in this process is that everything is a miracle. Like trees and wind coming off of the ocean, getting a good night's sleep, like talking to people, listening to music, eating different foods. These once basic things, once you kind of become aware, are amazing.
Yeah.
And we take it for granted. So in the monastery, and so maybe self-restriction is an important part of this process. And I think a Stoic philosopher would say to restrict as much as you can will help you truly understand life. So in the monastery, if we go back to that militaristic aspect, there was a lot of psychological testing that goes on through the ranks. And so that includes sleep deprivation, comfort deprivation, removing your bed and sleeping on concrete. I did that for 6 months. Not eating, learning the art of fasting, not listening to music, right? We weren't allowed to just listen to music. We didn't have friends that we talked to. We didn't go out by ourselves. We always had another monk with us. We weren't allowed to do things that didn't have a schedule or a plan or purpose. Okay, so when people ask me, well, what's one of the best things you've experienced upon leaving? For me, it's been music.
Yeah.
Like opening up Spotify and being able to listen to whatever you want, world music, like Spanish guitar and opera and Beethoven. Like that is at your fingertips.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And every day like if I'm especially if I'm by myself and not with my family and I'm just cruising and I'm listening to like music and just staring out the window, like that's life.
Yeah.
That's
Appreciating the small things.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So beyond that is serious profundity, and your interaction with that becomes the meaning, and it changes between people to people, but that's the basic foundation of meaning, is just experiencing life.
Yeah.
And I believe it was Campbell or someone in the same field of philosophers. They said that, or Viktor Frankl said that the meaning of life is to make life meaningful. It is what you make it, right? It's a cliche.
Definitely.
It's a cliche for a reason. So it will happen. You'll figure it out. Usually it's painful.
Yeah.
Go through life, figure out what went wrong, figure out what conditioned you to think that you are who you are, and reset. And then see what happens after that.
Because that's one of the things I think we and I myself I'm guilty of this, is when you're younger and or whatever, I think sometimes we try and run away from suffering, from hardship. We feel that we have to get away from it, and if you can achieve that, then everything's good. But what you realize as you get older is that the suffering and the hardship, that's part of it, and you have to, that's yes, it you can look at it in a way, this is horrible, this is unfair, this shouldn't be happening, but in a way you should be looking at going, no, what can I learn from this? How can I overcome this and then the overcoming of it, I can become a better person, and then you can teach others. So I like that in the monastery that there was constant testing, like would take your bed away, sleep on concrete for 6 months, which would be like, well, okay. So it's really, really interesting that obviously in the setting up of this structure, that they could have just made a complete bliss. You're on this beautiful island and tropical paradise, life is golden, but they actually want to know, we'll balance that out with this beauty plus this built-in hardship to kind of keep you on the path, as you said.
Right. It's little bits of the dragon, like little bits. We're going to breathe fire here. We're going to make it really hot here. Because if it's too much order, right, it destroys you. You're not going to learn anything. So they knew that.
Yeah.
But eventually, the little things, they no longer become devastating. You know, that's the point, the sleep deprivation. Okay, so I can't sleep. You know, for 9 months, I only got 2-hour naps. So it's okay, sleep. Who cares? It's for other people. Food deprivation. All right, fine. I don't need food. You know, after a while, these hardships, they're not really hardships. That you conquer them. And so that's because it was like, because then I think you could bring up the argument, well, if you can inject chaos into order, then you never had to leave. And it's like eventually chaos and order blend into the same thing. Life then becomes like a game. And it's really the things that piss people off. You're like, what? Like, that's not a hardship. In the end, like self-mastery, you don't have hardship. You don't have challenge. You don't have difference. You don't see difference. You see consciousness. You see a oneness in everything, both in murder and in childbirth, in hunger and in satiety. It's like you see a continuity, a thread of consciousness in the universe. And this is when you figure everything else out. So if that confuses you, sorry, but the people will get that. Like, it's And it's Hindu philosophy. It's Eastern philosophical tradition. It's karma. It's reincarnation. It's dharma. It's like divinity everywhere. And eventually we get to that point and we start living that philosophy. And that's when people start to ask you. They're like, "Hey, can you teach me?"
Yeah. The book, Everything is Your Fault. How did that book come about? And is everything really our fault or my fault?
No. So not everything is our fault. Yeah, a few pages. I think the first chapter. I kind of try to explain that. So most things that we can be responsible for become our fault. Okay. So I didn't want to write the book. All right, I'll go through the first question. I didn't want to write the book. I don't like my writing.
Okay, right.
Look, I mean, I've read so many amazing works throughout my life, and works throughout history are absolutely mind-blowing. Like you said, referencing Greek philosophy, like Socrates and Plato, Aristotle and the Nicomachean Ethics, Henry David Thoreau writing Walden Pond. I mean, my God, when you read those things, it's like, I don't need to write because this exists. Joseph Campbell exists. Why am I talking about this, right? So one of my students who I worked with for about 8 months when I got out of the monastery, we finished up our training and I helped her. And she was just reflecting one day. She said, not everyone is going to get a chance to go through 8 months with you and sit down like this every day. And she said, people need to hear what we've talked about in a book. You need to write this down. You need to write a book. And I said, I don't know. And I guess it kind of hit me a few weeks later. I thought, okay, well, yeah, I guess I can write some stuff down and if it helps someone. But I won't make it about myself. I felt better about it when it wasn't all about myself. I said, okay, here's what I'll do. I'll do part autobiography, all that stuff, and then part teaching. And real simple, direct teaching. That's my favorite. That's how I was taught. Very clear teaching. Not flowery and things like that. Nothing to do with super metaphysical stuff, but just basic, here's what you need to do. And so it all came to me at once. I was sitting in a cafe in Santa Fe. My partner was out on business, and when we went on a business trip, so I went out walking into town, not knowing where I was going, stumbled upon a Japanese tea house, sat down, drank a tea called monk tea, and out came every single aphorism or teaching that the chapters of the book have. And I just wrote them all down. And I saw the book like finished. And so over the next few months, I then defined each teaching and then wrote down the autobiography part separate, and then blended the two together just kind of by accident. And then that was it.
Yeah, because it's for anyone who maybe hasn't seen it yet, but it's a great book, and I actually enjoy the fact that you go into the autobiography part, and then you're into the teaching, so it actually flows very well, flows very nicely, and I think but books like that, and especially like your message, because when Gavin, in case anyone wondering who Gavin is the publisher of your book, sent me an email saying, would you be interested in interviewing Rajan? I said, like, absolutely. I like the title because I think that's one thing in modern society that we're starting to lack personal responsibility. And again, I'm not knocking all people, but we're very much in a litigation society. It's not your fault, it's their fault. You can get money for that. Do you know what I mean? And maybe I'm tarring everyone the same brush, but I think it's very. I think the cult, I'll call it this, the cult of victimhood, is actually getting stronger. You can see it growing worldwide. It's very much. Whereas the answer is like what you're saying, what Jordan Peterson's saying. It's personal responsibility, and by fostering that resilience, you can turn your victimhood into become your own hero. That sounds cheesy, but which could then go on to live a more fulfilling life. Because I think if you're empowered, your life is more fulfilled. Whereas if you're a victim, you're like a sheep in a pen, waiting for the butcher to come to slaughter you.
That's right.
With regards to personal responsibility, I know you've touched on quite a lot. What would be like the number one tip for someone to develop that level of personal responsibility? I know it might sound like an obvious answer to that, but
like be responsible. But the nuance and the detail is in each small experience.
Mm-hmm.
For example, this interview, my office, the bathroom next to my office had a renovation going on, drilling through the walls. Everyone from the installers to my spouse was saying, just reschedule. And it's like, well, that would be the path of least resistance. How can I be responsible? What's the alternative? Well, move the studio. It's harder that way. It may not work. The connection could be bad, the lighting, the sound. But we have this time in the universe. We've scheduled it. There's a solution. Rescheduling is one solution. But I could possibly put in a little bit of effort. Take the blame. Move myself into action. And that means I'm in control.
Mm-hmm.
Not the installers, not the drill, not the sound, not everyone else telling me what to do, right? The projection. Oh, do this, do this, do this. How about I do what I set out to do and I take the reins back from them being taken from me? So it's that's an example. And it's small, it's the mundane. It's all the way up into the profound. How do I change my life? How do I take responsibility for, how does a rape victim take responsibility, right? How does someone who was horrifically traumatized for 10 years in a sexually abusive childhood take responsibility? And I've had podcasts on Man in the Making about this with those people. And I kid you not, I doubt the philosophy sometimes when it comes to that, because I'm like, I don't know how to talk about that. But I met and talked with some of the most amazing, heroic people. And they assure me, they're like, yeah, that happened. But what do I do afterwards? And it's like, none of us can complain ever.
Yeah.
I never, ever want to hear someone talk about something trivial when there are people on this planet walking around who have truly suffered.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, you know what? I'm not a victim. I'm fine. I can go beyond my imagination and succeed. And that pain and that hurt, those people that hurt me don't win here. I win.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you say to that? And you have to live it. What you say to that? You keep saying it. You keep talking about it. You try to get deeper into someone's horror, and you try to find other people who are doing it and who have been through that, and you read about it. One of my most favorite books is 100 pages. It's Frederick Douglass's autobiography.
Okay.
And that's just what it's called, like my autobiography or something.
Okay.
He wrote 3 autobiographies, of course, but his first one, when he was a young man, he wrote. And so he was born into slavery. Epictetus, famous Stoic philosopher, the most famous, born into slavery. Both individuals ended up freeing themselves through knowledge. Frederick Douglass would as a child would steal bread from his master's dining room table and give it to the children in town so that they could teach him how to read. And it was a barter.
Yeah.
And he writes, I would give the bread for their fulfillment, and they would fulfill me with the bread of knowledge.
Yeah.
So,
Powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to expose yourself to that. And so that's how you do it. And then you put the book down, or you take your earbuds off and you look outside and you're like, okay, I can move the goddamn studio.
No, it's a good example, yeah. Because I think we do kind of it's very easy to let ourselves off the hook and kind of thing, and but that's a very good point. Yeah, it's a very good example. I have to ask, how did you get involved with NASA, and are you able to talk about the work that you do with them?
Yeah. So one of my students for 2 years outside of the monastery, again, go back to the connector idea. So I met someone in California in the monastery who was a visitor, and he connected me with a student who works at NASA and is a director at NASA. And he found out I was coming to California and said, hey, I'd like you to try out for this position. Love for you to be on our team. If it works, great. If it doesn't, but I had to work for it. He said, I can kind of, here's the in, but if they don't like you, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah. So
he was hands off from there, and he had to do that for conflict of interest reasons. So that was a 5-month process. That was very painful, exhausting. Basically went out on a limb and just kind of, bet the farm on it. And it worked. And so ended up working with a small team on advanced air mobility, basically human drone flight, working with teams like Uber and Amazon and Boeing, who want to push drone technology to the next level. This is a disruptive technology, getting passenger drones to move people throughout the country, and in 4 levels: throughout the neighborhood, throughout the city, throughout the country, throughout the state, and throughout the country. And so really great day job. Of really thankful that's going on. And I don't need to know, and I don't know about aeronautics and aerospace. But what I do know is how to think clearly, how to organize people, how to help them think, and just how to coordinate basically, groups, gatherings, events, and things like that. So, and I was trained in the monastery to do that. So very thankful for that training. That's a wonderful thing. And then, of course, I've got the nonprofit that takes up some of my time. I still work with young people who are struggling through Zen Mind Academy. And I have a private practice as a sort of a cognitive specialist where I help people think through things.
Yeah. With regards to that, as one question I was meant to ask earlier on, but when you're helping people, you've helped over 1,000 people. Do you see a common thread? Does there seem a common theme that pops up with a lot of people who are coming to get help from you? Is there a common thread, or is there just a lot of differences?
I mean, yes and no, right? It's all a common thread of lack of self-awareness. There are differences. Some of it's relationship, some of it's young person, some of it's executive, leading a team. How do I lead a team? Those are the differences, right? Different archetypes, but it usually boils down to responsibility. So it's pretty much responsibility training. How do I take responsibility for this instead of blaming them? And a lot of people that come to me for meditation training actually are coming to me for therapy, psychoanalytic therapy, and their homework assignment is responsibility. And their meditation gets better. Their mind doesn't overthink as much. A lot of overthinking is due to lack of planning. So there's some planning training, being prepared for life and projects. Some of the people that I'll work with someone for about a year. That's about as long as I need for someone to get the full, like, from the edge of life and not knowing anything to kind of regaining themselves. That's where you'll see the whole gamut. You'll see them struggle inside their mind. They can't visualize things. They can't think clearly. They have past trauma. They have difficulty working with other people, communicating with other people, especially their spouse. So one by one, if you have to go through that, you have to go through that with someone in a totality in their whole mind. And then you have the person who just needs a little insight, 2 hours, and they're like, oh, got it. I did not see that. Back on track. Boom, ready to go. So everyone in between.
Yeah, no, excellent. We're pretty much near the end, and I often ask this question to a lot of my guests. It's kind of a new question. What is your mission statement, if you were to write that down?
Yeah, I hate that question. Over the last few years, living in the world, I've come across that a lot, like specifics about who I'm helping and things like that. And I'm not really good with specifics. Okay, but all I know is that I don't really know what's going on. All I know is that you have to make. My mission is to make things extremely challenging for myself.
Okay.
And to strive from year to year, month to month, week to week, to do something that I have no idea how to do, and that seems impossible. And I just keep doing that. And I'm also striving to help as many people as I can, the right people. I don't think I'm meant to help everyone, but there's a certain person that I can figure out very quickly for a certain set of people. And I seem to do very well with clearing things up for them. And so my mission leaving the monastery, which I told some of the monks, I'm going to go help people, especially I'm going to help young people figure out their life a little bit. So that's definitely there. For me, I have to do the same thing or else it won't make sense.
Yeah.
So for me, it's the mission is now family. I have a 4-month-old, and I'm gonna raise my family. I'm gonna develop them, and we're really gonna be as good as we can. We're gonna take this life as good as it can get,
Yeah.
and just help people along the way. And it's happening. It's working.
Yeah. No, definitely. Because when I was preparing for this interview, one of the things that I definitely noticed right away was it's a buzzword now, but your ability to pivot, your ability to kind of to Jeff Thompson will call it shape shift into a different role was very, very inspiring. And I think often not society kind of dissuades you from that. People are maybe stuck in ruts, and they feel, I know where I need to go, but there's a lot of pressure to go, no, that's too risky. You should be grateful for what you got. But you demonstrate in a very elegant way your ability to shift for the positive. It's almost kind of like laying down like a framework that other people, if they want to, can follow. So I thought that was quite inspiring. So it was.
Pivoting.
If I can ask, how can people get in touch with yourself, either for the one-to-one work, or your non-profit?
Well, let me just thank you for the compliment on the pivoting and becoming working for NASA and being an author and all that stuff I've been doing. Again, like I talk to so many people who are superhuman, right? And to find someone who has superpowers, basically, talk to any mother. Like, man, mothers are doing it. And they really get like serious credit for going through challenges and training someone and pivoting and doing multitasking throughout life.
Definitely. So
I always think about my spouse, who's been through it. We've moved around a lot and everything, and man, women in general have superpowers. So, myself, I'm my email is available on my website, rajanshankara.com. People can contact me. I think my phone number is available somehow. But I'm always, I try to make myself available a lot. Very, very reachable, very approachable. A comment on social media, and you can find me, but my website is kind of a hub of contact and education.
That's great. I'll include the link when this goes out. I'll include the link in the show notes below, so
Right.
So anyone can click down below and access that. Rajan, thank you very much for your time today. Really enjoyed the interview. And again, if anyone's watching this, please definitely check out the book. Everything is Your Fault, and it's out on June 25th in the UK. And it's a book that is it's very to the point, and I think it'll help a lot of people. So, Rajan, again, thank you very much. And if you don't mind me putting you on the spot near the end here, would you be interested in coming back on again? It'd be great to have you on and maybe talk about further on some of the themes that we've kind of covered today.
Oh, absolutely. I love conversations. They're necessity to expanding our thought. So we need them. So absolutely, 100%. And can I invite you onto my show one day and we'll have a talk?
Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great. Sorry we didn't. I know you mentioned it. I meant to ask about the podcast, but we were taking a deep dive in quite a lot of subjects there. So, no, definitely. I'll arrange for you to come back on again and take a further deep dive into quite an interesting topic. So, no, thank you very much again.
Thank you. Yeah, the podcast is one of my most passionate projects. I think it's actually it's pretty special for me. Man in the Making we're over like 80 episodes now, and I do the show with one of my students. So this is a young man in going to school in London. He's from Lithuania, and he found my work and a few of my books online from 2013. And I've since left that work. It was his idea to kind of get together and record my thoughts. And he is the man in the making. Like, he's the one asking questions. We're talking about life, and it's basically a teacher-student evolution being recorded. And I think it's the only thing like it.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and where can people find that? Sorry, I suppose the usual places you find podcasts.
Yeah. If you type in "Man in the Making," it's on Spotify and Apple and all those other smaller podcast homes. He's the producer of the show, so he does all that.
Excellent. No, that's great. No, I'll have to check that out. So, Rajan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, and good luck for the book release.
I look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you.